So I see it's 2 o'clock. Hello, everyone. I think we probably, well, here, if you want to get started at 2:01, I think it's okay. People are in a routine here, so it's in your hands. I think we have about 53 participants already. Well, here, are you speaking? Because I think you're on mute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Vajra from beautiful country called Sri Lanka. And I wish good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to different parts of the world. I'm in the part of good evening part. So it's warm and nice in Sri Lanka, but I know in certain part of the world it's freezing cold. So therefore, I warmly welcome you to this virtual platform global meeting on targets, indicators, and milestones. And I also thank you on behalf of SciChem for attending this virtual global meeting and also for your electronic submissions of your ideas, your suggestions, your proposals, and also your constructive criticism. Brenda, my counterpart, my fellow co-chair Sylvia, and myself have exhaustively reviewed all your submissions and we have discussed together. And I will give you a brief outline of what we have discussed. And we are overwhelmed and delighted by your enthusiasm, your dedication, and your commitment towards our common objective. So we have compiled all your submissions and shared with you. Hope you had a time to go through them. Let me briefly outline. The MPS Institute raised concern about gender inequality in countries of transition economies, which is very relevant. As we know, transition countries, the access to education for female gender is limited and restricted. So that results in female illiteracy. Female illiteracy is a major contributor to exposure of female workers, especially agriculture and plantation. So that's a very valuable suggestion. And also they suggested to disaggregate data. So by disaggregating into subtopics, we may see more hidden or unseen information. And also the IPEN has raised concern about making synergies of UNEP and ILO. We already have such synergies. We know ILO is closely working with us, and IPEN is concerned about ILO conventions on occupational safety and health, 155 and 187, and their ratification. Yes, workers in the world of work are one of the most vulnerable groups with regard to chemical safety. So thank you for your concern. As an consultant industrial health physician working for the labor sector, I am very much delighted by that. IPEN also raised concern about nanotechnology and nanomaterials. We actually still don't know the health impact and impact on environment by nanomaterials and nanotechnology. Thank you, IPEN, for your valuable submissions. UK says they are willing to support an ambitious and improved coordinated global action. So it's a positive, very encouraging sign that UK is supporting this global effort. They are concerned about coordination of areas such as biodiversity, climate change, SDGs, and health. They also suggest to analyze opportunities and risks associated with using technological advancements such as artificial intelligence, big data, digitalization, green finance, and green chemistry. Thank you very much, UK, for your valuable inputs. The ICCA, they raised concern about confidential business information while collecting data and information on industrial chemical. Yes, this should be done without prejudice to their confidential business information. So that is their intellectual property. So we have to safeguard the intellectual property. And they have mentioned that under the Dubai Declaration, under para 22, it has been mentioned very clearly. So thank you, ICCA, for your valuable inputs. EU and member states, they look forward to exchanging of views with other stakeholders. Yes, most certainly exchanging and sharing of views would make synergies. So exchanging, you will exchange and get new idea, you don't lose your own idea. So that's a great suggestion. And EU also proposed 4 new targets. Sylvia will go into the details of those targets. They have suggested to limit the targets to maximum of 25. Thank you very much, EU and member states, for your valuable input. Japan also has raised concern about confidential business information, and also they propose certain terminology, language issues, that they like to replace the term waste with the term one of the life cycle stages of chemical. Japan proposes to use the term government instead of country. Thank you. And also they propose to use the term adverse effect instead of harm. So Japan is of the view that chemicals make our life happy, prosperous, and healthy, and chemicals contribute to our improved quality of life only if we handle chemicals safely and environmentally sound manner. Yes, of course. We fully endorse that. Thank you very much, Japan, for your contribution. ITUC, the trade unions, obviously they are concerned about the workers in the world of work. Yes, as I already mentioned, workers in the world of work are one of the most vulnerable groups for chemicals. The ITUC raised concern about human rights of workers and also the right of worker to occupational health and safety, right of the worker and the need of the worker to know the hazardous nature of the chemicals they handle. Thank you very much, ITUC, for your valuable inputs. And then the USA, they say as first step, the countries and stakeholders should identify measures for sound management of chemicals, and not necessarily through national plans. And according to them, through national plan could be resource intensive and may not be sustainable. So we have to discuss. Thank you. And also they have specifically mentioned that each reference to the term waste should be preceded by the term associated. And they believe that the phrase achieve sound management of chemical throughout their life cycle is more comprehensive and positive description of the activities for targets than the word prevention or minimizing of harm. And under target A5, they strongly support the inclusion of the phrase to which they are a party and in which they participate. Thank you very much, USA, for your valuable and interesting contribution. Colombia also made few suggestions. So they also endorse the use of the word government instead of countries, and they propose to omit the word waste and retain throughout their life cycle. So that is what, in brief, the outline of what you have submitted electronically, and my fellow co-chair Sylvia will go into details of each proposal and target by target, and she will explain in details. And also Sylvia will introduce targets under strategic objective D and E today. It is our subject to discuss. And during this, we expect your active participation, your general comments, and your suggestion, your proposals, and also your constructive criticism you can raise, and also you can electronically submit them thereafter. So Sylvia also will talk on information of the process for review of strategic objective C, which is new today. And Sylvia will explain you what would be our next step for the meetings in December and January. So Brenda, Sylvia, and me do hope that today we will have a very fruitful, productive discussion with your active participation. You all are the live wire of this meeting, and the objective of this virtual meeting is to improve the quality of our program and bring our program forward, and ultimately end up with sound targets, indicators, and milestones that would be very robust and prudent. And those targets should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. As we know, thousands of chemicals coming into the global market every year. So our efforts have no destination, as I mentioned earlier. So we have a direction to go, sky is the limit. So your active participation is very much encouraged, and thank you very much. And now I hand over the floor to my counterpart from UNAP, Brenda, who is our live wire and our think tank. Brenda, over to you.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction, Wahira, to today's session. And thank you again for your continued hard work on this matter. I'm only going to make a quick housekeeping announcement as we get started here, and then the meetings, I'll turn back over to Sylvia to jump into the agenda item. But just a reminder to everyone that what we will do is, if in terms of taking the floor during the discussion, I will be calling names about 3 at a time so we can open up the microphones and keep things running smoothly. And I think that worked smoothly on the last call that we did with the issues of concern. So what we're going to do is open up the floor 3 at a time or so. So I'll be calling that. And what I would like you to do is in the to message to everyone in the chat to write down your organization name and your name for me to call you out. Or you can raise your hand in the chat box. It's just, I think on certain devices, the hand raise function isn't always working for everybody. So first you can put your name, organization name, followed by your name in the chat box if you wish to take the floor, or you can raise your hand, and that's how we'll track the speakers throughout the day today. By all means, just make sure you connect with us in terms of making sure everybody gets an opportunity to say what they need to say. So we're very grateful for that. I remind you of the website page. Maybe somebody on our team could drop that in the chat where the information is uploaded for this meeting and the virtual working groups generally. So if Eduardo, you could maybe drop that in the chat, that would be great. That all of the inputs we've received have been posted there and are very transparent and available. So over to you, Sylvia, for the next steps. Oh, great. I see it's in the chat already. Thank you, Delphina. The virtual working groups page is on the chat. That's where you can find the information that's been forwarded for this meeting. Thanks. Go ahead, Sylvia.
So hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from myself as well. And if Wahira was speaking about the warm weather at his end of the world, then I can speak about the first light snow that I had outside in my garden on Friday. So because I like winter, I'm very encouraged by the fact that despite things in the world that don't seem to be changing, advancing maybe that quickly, that at least the seasons are in fact continuing to rotate as they should. So yes, thank you for joining us, and I'll just jump into the presentation that we have. We'll walk through the steps so that it's easier for you to follow
Okay, so just a moment here. It seems like we've lost Sylvia, so just checking in on that technologically. Give us a moment or two. Sylvia? Just give us a couple of moments. In the meantime, maybe we can just have a little atmosphere here. Maybe everybody could drop in the chat just so we know you know how to use it. That you could maybe drop in the chat box your organization and your name. So I'm just going to put that in while we wait for her. SciChem Secretariat Brenda. And maybe everybody else could do that while we wait. Give us a minute or two to get Sylvia connected. Thanks. Hi, Sylvia. We seem to have lost you there, but you seem to be back.
Okay, I'm worried, my apologies. I'm worried my husband works from home and he's a musician, and I'm afraid that he's maybe uploading some of his studio work downstairs in his, we compete in this way. So I'm very sorry for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you very much for the information that we've received up until now. And what we would like to just explain are we had two issues that came up quite a few times last time we met. And we had a discussion with the co-chairs on these issues. Just for clarity, we wanted to brief you before we start into the target work. So first is the issue of waste. So we had a number of concerns about the issues of waste and how we should be dealing them with this within this group. And we had already proposed last time that we not spend, because we have very specific mandate to deal with the targets, that we don't go into very detailed deliberations on waste, to save that for more in-depth discussion, looking at the different aspects and how to deal with this under the SciChem in the future. So we did have a discussion with the co-chairs, and they suggested that we do concentrate on formulating the targets as best as possible at this stage, and that waste could be used in further deliberations beyond our virtual working group, where there would be an opportunity to solely address the scope and to understand how to deal with it. And also the co-chairs flagged that they agree with the fact that we could use placeholders to show areas and targets where we at least flag that this issue now needs to be dealt with in future meetings. The second issue was in regards to indicators, the kind of chicken-egg discussion that we had last time, and not only last time, but also in the technical working group. And here we also, had an affirmation from the co-chairs that the indicators are very closely linked to milestones. And thus, the idea is that we do not go into depth on indicators at this time, but we could think about the process for having some work that could have some additional expert involvement, where there could be work on the indicators in the future. And in our work as co-facilitators, we will be drafting a proposal, which we hope to share with you on the 7th December meeting, where we could explain how this could be done in future work. And next slide, please. So for the meeting today, what we would like to propose is that we discuss, go through the strategic objective B targets, going target by target in text edits. Wahira has already given you an overview of the different comments that we've received, so we don't want to go into discussions on the general comments, but you do have them in the materials that you received. You have both our compilation to make it easier to walk through the issues, and also you have separate submissions that you can refer to if you would like. So we will be starting with the strategic objective B targets, and then moving to the strategic objective A targets, going by target and looking at the text edits. And then what we would like and really encourage you is when you provide your comments, because we do have limited time in this call and in the virtual working group meetings, is that you in your comments show that you had and have a reflection and consideration of the other comments that are received, and that you look at these concrete proposals and address concrete solutions for within these proposals that are in front of us at this time as you speak. Next slide, please. So this is the agenda. We've already gone through the welcome remarks, and we're now going to go into the discussion of the inputs provided for targets under strategic objective B. I'll just generally, but Wahida did a good job about going through the general comments, so I might not be spending as much time on the readout of the general comments, and then we'll go into target by target. And then we'll, after we've gone through the target by target, we'll just agree on the way forward for that target. Then we'll be moving into strategic objective A. We will also be looking at the new targets that are proposed. There are some under each strategic objective where there are new targets proposed. We'll take a look at those as well. Then we will be looking at the introduction of targets under strategic objective D. This time we will just have a short introduction. We will not have as much time to deal with it as we did in the previous meeting. But you know, there is a written session for this. And then we will move on to strategic objective E targets. And as a final information point, I will be providing information on the process for the review of the strategic objective C targets, because we have an update on that for you. And then finalization of the meeting, we'll go through the next steps. Next slide, please. So yes, thank you again for the submissions that we received. We received a total of 19 electronic submissions, and we do really appreciate that you used the template that was provided and you did adhere to the submission deadline. We understand that this is a constraint and it is a challenge, and especially those of you who are working not only in this virtual working group, we all have our also other jobs that we work on. So we do acknowledge that this was a difficult task, and we appreciate that you did adhere to the deadline and the format. This has facilitated us the ability to provide you with a structured document. We hope that is more helpful in our deliberations. And also due to the fact that there were quite a lot of comments that were addressing a lack of clarity on responsibles or the interests in looking at indicators, we have added to the compilation document, if you've noticed at the end, we've added the information that was gathered during the technical working group, which is contained in IP4/3, I think, a document, so that you see the what has been the vision kind of for the responsibles and the different indicators that might be used under each target. This is meant just as a reference for you to be more helpful as you look at the submissions. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we are moving into the discussion of the targets under SOB. And in reviewing your comments on the strategic objective more generally and looking at the targets generally, we extracted 2 points which we thought we could agree on before moving into the targets. And first is there were comments related to confidential business information. And we would like that there's agreement that we forward to the group developing the high-level declaration, these comments. And we suggest that there is, in the comment section on our work, that we leave a placeholder for the drafting of the indicators that makes a note of this confidential business information aspect. Okay, so I hope we can agree on that. Okay, and the second issue that came up is the insertion of target dates. So it's been a general comment from quite a number of you that submitted. And, you know, there's different approaches that we should think about the dates now, that we shouldn't think about the dates now. And considering that we do have different opinions, in order to target our work on the formulation of the different wording of the targets, we would like to focus on the wording of the targets, and for now leave the discussion on proposed dates for a later time. This will allow us to focus our work. So I hope we can have an agreement on that in our way forward. If there are any objections on these two, you know, I ask you to raise your hand, but otherwise.
I see one hand up, Sylvia, from Jill Hanna from the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution. Jill,
Okay,
did you
Jill,
want to take
please.
the floor? Can someone unmute Jill Hanna, please? Can someone please unmute Jill Hanna?
It turns out I have the power, so at least.
I think our team does too, but I see Jill, your microphone's on. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, co-facilitators. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Brenda, and all the team at the SciComm Secretariat for making this means of working possible. I'm the same Jill Hanna, many of you know, but I am now retired and I'm working part-time for the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution, and it's a privilege and great fun, in fact, to be amongst you again. I just wanted to make one remark in relation to confidential business information. This was, of course, an extremely contentious topic when we first put the SciComm text together. And while, of course, we in the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution, which is an NGO grouping a number of developing countries, NGOs, UNDP, and has other UN agencies as observers and some donors as observers. We would like to point out that confidential business information should never be a reason to not give health data. So we hope that in the way we treat this, it will always be clear that that's the case. And there was text in the first ICCM about that, and it needs to be preserved. Thank you.
I also see that Olga would like to take the floor. Olga Sporinskaya.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Olga.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So actually, for now, I have one question regarding the submissions and on the website. I represent Health and Environment Justice Support, and on behalf of Health and Environment Justice Support, Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, Pesticide Action Network, and Toxisphere, and some other NGOs, we submitted the electronic inputs on the 12th of November. And we do not see it on the website, among other uploaded submissions. So I just resent the email to the Secretariat again with this submission attached, again for your convenience, but just to let you know that it was submitted on the 12th of November. So this is it for now, and our comments will come just a bit later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry, I apologize for that. Yeah. Things like that can happen this way, but we'll check on that and we'll take that into account further. I see there's another hand up. Abbas Torabi.
I think you're unmuted at us, Abbas. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, slightly. You have to talk loudly, please.
Hello.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. Since I wasn't able to attend the first virtual meeting, I'm from Iran, focal point of my country. Since I didn't have the opportunity to attend the first meeting, in the guidance for submission of input, I saw that it was mentioned that there will be 3 opportunities for submitting input. Would you please clarify about it 3 times? Since we know that the time for submission of input have ended, but I didn't know what you mean by saying 3 times the opportunity. Please clarify about it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a bit of trouble hearing you, but if I understood, you were asking about submissions and that there were some constraints to submit something. I'm not sure if I understood you correctly, but for now, we had asked in the previous meeting that there were submissions for contributions to the A and B targets. During this meeting, we wanted to discuss those specific submissions, and the next submission will be when we close this meeting in a week's time. We would like to receive submissions for comments on the targets D and E. So if you have some submissions for D and E, then there's an opportunity for you to still submit them, because we haven't yet launched that. But in terms of submissions that you want to make for A and B, I would suggest now in our discussion that you try to perhaps in the chat section or by intervening to show your preference to one or another text that is being proposed. Okay, so thank you. So we'll move to the next slide, please.
Just a moment.
Okay, so here we have the target B1. Here on this target, we had quite a lot of comments on data and information and the need to understand more the scope of the data information that we expect under this target. There were issues related to post-market conditions, legacy chemicals, the different responsibles that would need to be clarified, types of information on chemicals that need to be expanded, etc. So we have now put up the original formulation that we have from the document in front of us, but we have also placed, just for easy reference. Now, easy references depending on how good your screen is and how big it is, but we've tried to put the different proposals for text edits in front of you, so it would be easier to have a reflection upon them. And now we will open the floor to hear your suggestions on the way to approach this text and how we would like the target to be formulated. And as I mentioned, if you could, in providing your preference to the text, please do address not only your own proposal, but in reflection upon the others, provide what you feel is the best formulation. So we open the floor now.
Okay, so I see that Priscilla Alves would like the floor. Priscilla's hand is up, and Abbas, I think you should put your hand down unless you still want to speak.
So Priscilla Alves?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Co-Facilitator.
Your microphone is unmuted, so you can speak.
Okay, thank you. This is Priscilla from Brazil's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In fact, I would like to make a brief comment regarding confidential business information, because I have asked for the floor before, but I would like to make a brief comment on that. We agree, Brazil agrees with the general idea of protecting this type of information, but in our opinion, it should not occur at the expense of the protection of human health and the environment. Just a brief comment on this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Jill Hannah made the same point, so we've made note of that, and that's been tabled. So target B1.
Okay, so I see Jill Hannah's hand is up. And others, please make sure you put your name in the chat box, name and organization, or raise your hand. So oh, Jill, I think your microphone's open.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I should apologize that we haven't been able to make a submission on these. So I will do as Sylvia suggested and make suggestions here or on the chat room. I will try and do most of them on the chat room because I don't want to talk too much. We haven't got time. However, we believe that those submissions that have stressed that this information needs to be made available to all stakeholders is extremely important. And we would like to support that addition to the proposal as it is in the target. As I understand it, the text in blue is the code facilitator's proposal, or have I got that wrong?
The blue is from the document.
The document 4/3.
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay, well, we would like to support the reference to all stakeholders at the end. We also think that the EU and its member states proposal to talk about countries in which chemicals are produced, which of course is now many countries in the world. But we think that it's important that the onus is on the governments of the countries to put legislation in place to make sure this happens. So we would like to support that proposal. Thank you.
Okay, and then if I start a speakers list here, I've got Bob Diedrich from OECD, Augustine Hart, followed by Matthias Wolf. So Bob Diedrich, OECD, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking through all the proposals for text changes. It seems that we're the only ones who had problems with the interpretation of the word data and information. The way it reads now, for me, means that it can be interpreted as just data on volumes and users. And I don't think that we want it to be read that restrictive, which is why we wanted to add a text addition to also make sure it also covers information on the properties of chemicals. I'm not sure our text proposal is the best here, but I'm a bit puzzled as to whether everybody thinks that data and information is good enough, or whether we need to be a little bit more specific. I'm a bit worried that if we leave it at data and information, it can be interpreted as very restrictive. So I think we should make sure that it also includes information on the properties of chemicals, so human health and environmental effects. Thank you.
If I can just say that I don't think that everyone is very comfortable with data and information, because in the general comments section, it was definitely mentioned a lot. So I think it's a question whether what would be the best formulation, and then in combination of indicators, perhaps is something that we can think about. So thank you. Next, please, we have
Augustine Hart, followed by Matthias Wolf from the EU, and then Auden from Norway. If you could remember to put your hand down, please, once you've spoken to. Thank you very much. Augustine.
Brenda, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair Silvia. So I still don't understand the way forward. Do you want us to put text, specific text on the board? From this specific target, we also support the deletion of the words "are shared," and we also like the including of at the end of "to all stakeholders" made by one of the written comments. And when we talk about data and information, yes, we have doubts. Should on one hand we could have a broader scope so that everybody fits in there, but on the other hand, as Bob said, we may not target the specific issues that we need regarding information. So that is something that we should discuss as well. I will put in text. I will put in the chat box the text as I mentioned. Thank you.
Next for the floor is Matthias Wolf from the EU, followed by Auden, Norway, followed by Olga Sporanskaya. Matthias?
Thanks very much, Brenda, for giving the EU and its member states the floor, and good afternoon to everybody. And many thanks also to the co-facilitators and Secretariat, perhaps, for the really useful documents you provided previous to this session. As Jill already mentioned our proposal, I want to bring into the attention of all other stakeholders as well that we proposed modified target B1. We think that captures many of the issues raised by others. For example, the point brought up by Norway regarding responsibilities. We think, as Jill said, that governments should be responsible and not the industry. And yeah, but that perhaps needs further discussion. And with regard to what the OECD mentioned, we are of the opinion that the scope of the target should be broad. And if that's not the case, in the opinion of all the stakeholders, we have to discuss it. Perhaps regarding the details, that might be work that can be done once we have an agreement about the general scope on this target. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. Next, we have Auden from Norway.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, fine. Thank you very much to the co-chairs and to the Secretariat for the preparation of this document, which is very useful. I would like to remind everyone about one of the key messages that was provided from the Cambridge workshop on targets and indicators, and that is that the target list can be a very efficient communication tool that helps us with the message that we want to bring to the society, if it is prepared in a clear and efficient language. So with that in mind, we have tried to find the essence in the target as it is written, and we have tried to provide an alternative in a concise language as much as possible. In addition, we think that this target lacks a responsible unit, so we have suggested industry there. Thank you.
Thank you, Auden. And I have on the speakers, I have Olga Sporanskaya, followed by Carolyn Vickers. Olga?
Yes, thank you very much, Brenda. So as I mentioned, so we have like very detailed comments to this section, particularly to target B1. We put some wording into the chat box, but it does not show track changes. So in our proposal, we suggested to include gender disaggregated data, and so the paragraph that we suggest should include gender disaggregated data as well as GHS formatted information on the properties and hazards, and safer alternatives, and that this information should be available and accessible to all stakeholders within and outside supply chains. So in our proposal, you will see the blue text that we suggested in B1 in the version that is suggested by the Secretariat. We also added like new targets to the text that is in our submission as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker we have is Carolyn Vickers from WHO. I see Priscilla Alves, your hand is up, but I think it's your previous intervention. So maybe just signal what, either put your hand down or I'll give you the floor next. Over to you, Carolyn.
Thanks very much, Brenda. So in the summary of the submissions, we noted that there had been expression of support for deletion of the words on the global market. And we had also suggested that in our written submission, but it's just lost from this slide. So we'd like to reintroduce that concept because it will then enable legacy chemicals to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next, I have Isuko Korada from Ministry of Environment, Japan. Itsuki, you have the floor.
Oh, can you hear me?
I hear you with a very strong echo, Isuki. Maybe.
Hi, how is it now?
Fine. A little bit. Oh. Can you maybe try to change your microphone and we give you the floor in a moment or two? I have
Yes.
Matthias.
So how is it now? Sorry.
Fine, actually. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much for co-facilitate and the Secretariat. And also, we appreciate that the CBI to be included and forwarded to the high-level declaration group. And we interpreted this B1 data and information is meant to be all-inclusive, such as, and we also actually have the sympathy to what the OECD had mentioned, that the data and information could be more specific. And we believe that this includes the chemical properties of chemical and also the distribution of chemical on the market, including the amount of use and traceability of chemical in products and such. But we believe that such details could be included in the indicator section. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Matthias Wolf from the EU asking for the floor. I see a comment in the chat. Canada interpreted data information is meant to be all-encompassing, volume, properties, toxicological, and monitoring. Matthias, you have the floor, EU.
Apologies for taking the floor again. Just a brief question back to WHO with regard to legacies. What is expected there with respect to or related to the kind of information and also to responsibilities? Who should provide that data? Thank you.
Next on the list, I have Laura Naza from the USA, and then I see Carolyn's hand up to respond to Matthias, I believe. So Laura, USA, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Just wanted to note in relation to the suggested text from the EU and member states about having legal requirements. Although in the US, we do have legal requirements in this area, just on principle for a voluntary instrument, we wouldn't think that it would be appropriate to have a requirement for legal requirements for countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Next, the floor goes to Carolyn Vickers, WHO.
Yes, thank you. So there are some chemicals, including natural ones, to which there's exposure, but they're not sold on the market, or there are chemicals which may have been withdrawn from the market, but there's still exposure and health impacts occurring as a result of those. So those responsible for generating the data, well, we think that all stakeholders that can participate in the generation of data, It might be industry, it might be research institutions, it might be intergovernmental organizations and others. And the information that they can generate can help with risk management of those chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I see Jill Hanna asking for the floor, and then I think we'll close the speakers list. Jill.
Thank you. We just wanted to respond to the US point. I think it's important to make the difference between the EU text, which says that countries ensure, and you might want to think about the word ensure, make it should ensure or something. But the legal requirements are at national level. They are not, it's not that this SICAM instrument is becoming a legally binding instrument through referring to national level legal requirements. So it might be important to distinguish between what is the verb here and what is a descriptor of requirements. And I think both might need to be modified slightly, but we certainly respect that the SICAM is not a treaty. But on the other hand, it's got to be effective. So it shouldn't be ruled out to refer to legal requirements at the national or, in the EU's case, intergovernmental level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've had a good exchange on this particular target. I think we still have some things that we need to consider in the sidelines. You know, the issue of data and information. I think Japan made a good suggestion, you know, that thinking about maybe how to use the indicators in this case, which might need some more time on your side to think about what would be the placeholders, what we want to make sure that is here. So I will suggest we move on to target B1 because we do have quite a lot still ahead of us. And target B2, and here we have under target B2, we have you know, had some general comments here also. One of them has been very strange from EU, which just says acceptable, which is, you know, for EU to have such short responses. That's already a good thing. Sorry, EU. Then we have here in front of us, we have, you know, the various text proposals that we have. So similarly, I would open the floor for your comments. We have Brazil, I think, raised the question of not really clear on what I would like. So yes, you can use the chat section if you have concrete text proposals, and we are capturing those. But if you would like to reflect a proposal as a solution to what you would like to suggest as the way you think the target should be formulated, which captures the different options that we have in front of us, then I would suggest you take the floor to explain why you think the target should be the way you propose, and then explain that to colleagues. So if it's just a new text proposal, then you can just put it in the chat, but I think it's valuable for us to have an engagement to hear the motivation on choosing one or another text formulation. So please now, I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts on target B2. Acceptable is a great comment, of course, but only if you agree that it does capture what we're trying to get. This is quite a long formulated target, so I think there has been some attempt to encompass quite a lot in this target already. So please, you have the floor.
Okay. I see that Jacqueline Alvarez from UNEP has asked for the floor, and I see that a comment's been dropped in the chat from Alexandra. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
target, but just to preserve the time, we will not make it. We will send it in writing, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I see that Alexandra has just reposted the text from before. Thank you, Alexandra. Olga Sparanskaya has asked for the floor. Olga?
Yeah, because our comments were not originally uploaded, so I just would like to briefly say that for we suggested other targets after B1 for in our submission. Target B2 is actually B7, but for the original B2, we in TLS suggest that burden of disease and cost of inaction is considered as one of the guidelines. So. By 2025, all stakeholders and governments are using the most appropriate and standardized tools, guidelines, and best available practices for assessments, including of burden of disease and cost of inaction. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Olga. I don't see any other hands at the moment. Augustine Hart is asking for the floor. Go ahead, Augustine.
Thank you, Secretariat. Just a couple of comments. On the first place, we see many comments requesting for the deletion of the most, and we agree on that. We think that maybe there are, it will be very difficult to determine specifically which is the most appropriate tool, and maybe there is more than one that is appropriate. So we agree on the proposal of deleting that text, and also at the end of the sentence, as Japan suggested, before the comma, and sound management of chemicals and waste. We should say what are we talking about. So two aspects I think were covered by several comments, and we support them.
Thank you very much, and thanks for reminding me. Yes, that was one of the things that seemed to be in agreement, is to delete the most. Thank you.
Okay, so asking for the floor, I have Ellen Strahl from the UK, followed by Auden from Norway. Ellen, you have the floor.
Good morning, and good afternoon and good evening, colleagues. Since it's the first time I'm intervening, I'm going to also thank the Secretariat and the co-facilitators for all your hard work in setting up these, and particularly in working through all the comments for objectives A and B. I was actually going to support the previous speaker on the deletion for the suggestion of deleting the most, and then also to say that we are broadly content with the target, but it is quite lengthy. So whether or not we need to include all the definitions around exactly what we mean for risk assessment and sound management is up for debate, I think, from our perspective, but thank you. So we would like to support the EU broadly.
Thank you, Ellen. Over to Auden from Norway. And from there, I see no other requests for the floor.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have included our proposal for a new separate target between target 1 and target 2, but we also provided some text proposal for this particular target. And like the previous speaker, we felt that wording was a little bit long, so we have proposed by 20XX, all stakeholders are using the most appropriate and standardized tools, guidelines, and best practices in the management of chemicals throughout their life cycle. And then we propose to move or specify the monitoring and enforcement in the indicators. I can post the wording in the chat. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That would be great if you could post in the chat. And apologies, you know, we've done our best to capture everything, but in compiling, maybe we've cut something out. So I think if there are no other speakers on this particular target, I did hear some agreement, which is positive. I think you know, the most is two unnecessary words in a long target, maybe that we can seems agree on that. And I do understand that it is a challenge. UK, as mentioned, it seems like a long target. We have a proposal by Norway how to make it a bit shorter. So I think it is something that we have to consider moving forward, is how to have that middle ground, because you know, there is always part of us trying to take out certain words to make the target you know, shorter, and then others who are inserting. So we have to kind of be clear, you know, of our options. So I think that, as Norway just mentioned, there is the option of looking at indicators and how indicators can help to kind of qualify the kind of information that we expect on this target. And I think as we move forward in this group and think about proposals, we do have to consider, you know, that way, because otherwise we will never find kind of a common ground of having a, you know, a meaningful enough target that is short enough for people to understand what is needed. So I will leave this target. The hands that are up right now, I think, have they been left by mistake, or are we asking for another? I see Ellen and UK. Sorry, and we're done already. Ellen, did you want to say something from UK? Sorry. Or have you left it up by mistake? Okay, so we can move now on to target B3. And there are still proposals coming in on the target formulation. So we are definitely going to get back to those during the time between our meetings, I think. So target B3, similarly then, we've had general comments on this. There were comments on the duplication of target B with target B1 and B2, and there seems to be not clear agreement on which formulation would be better. And then we have quite a lot of specific text proposals that we have in front of you right now. So now we will open up the floor for your comments on these text proposals. As I mentioned, please, if you want to speak, try to address, you know, your reflections in a way to propose a solution, and to show that you have actually considered the different comments made by colleagues. So target B3, you have the floor.
Hey, Bob Diedrich, I see Bob's asking for the floor.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, target B2 was really about, the way I understood it, about methodologies for risk assessment and risk reduction. And the first version here of target B3 seems to be a little bit of a duplication of that, whereas the original phrasing really much more focuses on methodologies for burden of disease and cost of inaction. So that's why we are very much more in favor of the original phrasing for target B3. It's much more specific and much more complementary to target B3, and we would definitely be in favor of having a target on having methodologies available for burden of disease and cost of inaction estimates. Thank you.
Okay, I see Matthias from the EU wants the floor. Matthias?
Thank you very much, Brenda. As I don't see our comment here on your slide, I just want to repeat that we thought it's B3 like it is now. It's just a duplication of B1 and B2. But with regard what Bob said from the OECD, if there's a need to add some things from the original phrasing to targets B1 or B2, we are open to discuss it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else asking for the floor on B3. Oh, I see Sarah Coombs from Canada. Sarah, you have the floor.
Good morning. Yes, we just would like to support Bob's comment that we viewed B2 and the original phrasing of B3 to be quite different. One focusing on the tools for assessment and management, and the second looking at the evidence base for the burden of disease and cost of inaction for impacts. Excuse me. Yes. So I just wanted to support that, and we would prefer to keep the two targets separate. Thank you.
Okay, then I now have Olga Sparnskaya, followed by Ellen Strahl of UK, followed by Augusta. So Olga, you have the floor.
Thank you, Brenda. We actually support the EU and OECD, and we think that in our submission, we prefer to have one original target B2 with our additions instead of for target B3, because there is a lot of duplication. And we also suggested for B2 to include burden of disease and cost of inaction from B3 into B2. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Then we have Ellen, followed by Augustin, followed by Tessa from UNEP. Ellen?
Many thanks, Brenda. Just to say that we would support Bob and Canada and the EU in that our preference would be for the original phrasing for target B3 because it does duplicate some of the other targets. And we also wanted to emphasize the importance of the cost of inaction and mortality and morbidity in relation to chemicals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We have Augustin, followed by Tessa, followed by Jill Hanna. Augustin?
Thank you, Brenda. Target B3 is a little bit tricky to resolve because we have on one side the original phrasing. Is somebody typing? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, this is a tricky target because I think that the original and the new one are addressing different issues. So on one side, we support the original phrasing to address burning of disease and cost of inaction. That is one important thing. But on the other hand, if we are going to keep target B3, the new proposal, we were thinking on including some of the contents that were presented on one of the alternative targets, target B7, regarding environmental information, releases and emissions, concentrations of chemicals in different media. So this type of other information that maybe, as mentioned before, is not covered under target B1. If we talk about information on the global market, that would be B1, but then there is some more and also important information that could be captured here in B3. As I mentioned, releases, emissions, and concentrations in the different media, those could be mentioned as part of target B3, but we also support the original phrasing as a separate target. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have Tessa, followed by Jill Hanna, followed by Anastasia from ICCA. Tessa?
Thanks very much, Brenda. As the comments from UNEP are not really visible, I just want to point out that in both target B3 and in the original phrasing for target B3, our proposal is that we add to health and environmental impacts, and the same for the target B3 original, after burden of disease environmental impact. And we're very pleased to see that that suggestion has been made by various other submissions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tessa. Next is Jill, followed by Anastasia. Jill?
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. To support those who want to keep the original phrasing, we think it's very important not only to have burden of disease, environmental impact, and cost of inaction as mentioned here, but to have them as a separate target. In fact, one could argue, why aren't they each a target? Because they are incredibly important. And we've found from our work on using burden of disease, it really gets buy-in to policymakers and is an incredibly important part of the science policy interface. So we wouldn't like it to be subsumed and lost in some other targets. Where we, perhaps because we weren't able to join in the first round of this discussion, nor indeed the earlier workshop, we have a bit of problem with the last phrase on the original wording, where it starts to inform the advancement of chemical safety measures and to measure progress towards reducing those impacts. We're not sure, and we would welcome explanations from anyone, why we would suddenly put justifications in for some targets when we don't have them in for all targets. And we really would think that that phrase would be better as part of the strategic objectives. And we would like to have every confidence, and we do have every confidence in the two co-facilitators, that following this discussion, they would tease out what is a target, what is a justification for a target, and what is an indicator, and separate those three levels and make it much more possible to understand why we've got certain things where we've got them. And as I say, I'm very conscious. I heard at least one participant talking about the need, if possible, to reduce rather than increase the number of targets. And certainly, we are concerned that at least with all the extra ones that are being proposed or were proposed at the workshop, we're going to end up with so many that we can't really make progress. And we also think it's really, really important to see how these targets tie up with the SDG ones, because that's where science policy interface will be easiest. So we don't want more targets, but we do think that the burden of disease and the cost of inaction are two rather separate things, and we're not sure it's right to put them both in the same target. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I have one last speaker. It's Anastasia Swearinger from the ICCA, and I think we can close the list for B3 if I don't get any more hands. Anastasia?
Hi, thanks, Brenda, and thanks again to our co-facilitators for organizing this discussion and really capturing some of the key comments that have been put forward in our written submissions. I just wanted to echo an additional point that we put in our written submission. So we support the wording of the target as it is now, with a few modifications that I think have also been echoed by some of the other stakeholders here, with adding environment to the health impacts. But ICCA would not support the original wording of the target. As we raised at the workshop in Geneva earlier this year, we have some concerns that were shared by other stakeholders about the methodologies and who would be calculating the burden of disease, costs of inaction, and particularly noting the scope of calculating the costs of inaction on the environment. So if we do want to move forward with having this target, we actually think it would fit better as indicators and warrant further discussion about how this would be done. So we would not support it at the target level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Andrea Rother from the University of Cape Town still asking for the floor. Andrea, go ahead.
And welcome to, hello to my colleagues all over the world. My comment is that we need to try and simplify the target so that it really does capture the essence of what it is we're trying to do. And it is complicated when you don't have the indicators to be able to make sure that the nuances of the targets are captured within the indicators. And what happens then is you try to pack too much into the target. But I have posted something in the chat, and it's not 100%, it doesn't have to be like that. But my main point is that I am not in favor of having the word use. I do like some of the original phrasing, but it would be very difficult to be able to assess if something is being used. So I think saying that mechanisms are in place to access information and standardized methods is much more efficient at replacing than use. And as I said, I've put it in the chat. But I do really think that we need to either, as suggested, have more targets at this stage rather than packing it so full that it loses the essence and the nuance of what it's trying to do. Thank you very much.
Sylvia, maybe you just summarize. I don't see any other hands up.
Yeah, so thank you, Andrea. Just check that it actually is in the chat because I couldn't find your comment. So if you can just make sure it's there. And yes, thank you for this exchange, very useful. Jill, it's very nice to hear that you have the confidence of myself and my co-chair that we can actually try to, during the time between now and our next meeting, try to craft these targets together with indicators, and so that there is some way forward. I want to assure you that all of you that we are keeping track of what is in the chat, and it is a bit maybe challenging. Now we if we were in a normal meeting, it would be only giving each person word. Now you have two planes on which you can work, which is very positive. But I think we do need, from our side as co-facilitators, we will need the time between this meeting and the next to gather all your ideas and to come back with you with a proposal that we can at least try to make sense of in the future. Andrea, I see the comment you have now, so thank you. Okay, so let's move then on to the next one, because we do still have quite a lot to get through. Here, there were some general comments as well on different issues related to this target, but we also have proposed text edits, which I think we can go straight into. As I mentioned, we won't be discussing the years, but there are different suggestions on the formulations on what to include to expand the scope of this or to make it more specific, this target. And so I wait for your engagement now on this particular target, please.
Okay, so I'm not sure, Anastasia, if your hand is up again or if that's the previous intervention. So first to Anastasia from ICC. Okay, first to Audun from Norway for the first intervention on B4.
This is a very important target in our view, and we support the current phrasing as it is, except that we think the target lacks a responsible entity, so we have suggested governments and NGOs, but I guess that may be discussed. But a responsible entity should be added.
Thank you, Audun. I now see Matthias from the EU.
Thank you very much, Brenda, and thanks to my Norwegian colleague. For us, the target is also very important for us as EU member states. With regard to what Norway mentioned, we think that all kinds of stakeholders are responsible to implement that target. As we understood the educational part, for example, as a governmental task, the training as a private sector task, and public awareness raising a task for everyone, including the civil society, the NGOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias. I now have Olga Sporinskaya once more. Olga, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So we would like to, for these B4 targets, we suggest to include gender responsive educational training and public awareness programs on chemical safety with the focus on vulnerable groups. So we would like to add gender responsive and vulnerable groups in this target 4. Thank you. So gender responsive on the vulnerable groups. Yeah.
Thank you, Olga. I don't see any other one asking for the floor. Sylvia?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see a comment that Canada, has made in the chat, which I think is important just to note. So the clarification on the process. So of course, you know, being very optimistic, I had expected that we would have agreed on all the targets for B at this point, and we would be synonymous of the wording that we would like. But of course, it's very important that we have these discussions, and we won't obtain that within this time frame that we have today. So what I think, considering we have in the chat quite a lot of suggestions, and we also have your suggestions that you made in writing, and you have had an opportunity also to hear what others would like to say. I would like to, you know, take advantage of the confidence that was expressed by Jill in us as co-facilitators. And I think what we will try to do between now and the next meeting is to, you know, try to bring together the different ideas that we have and try to propose some options on the target formulations, showing them together with ways they could be resolved together with indicators and responsibles. So this is something that I think that we should try to do, which could further, you know, feed into our discussions. I don't think at this point that it would be helpful if we just continue to submit comments on A and B targets. I think that, you know, you can concentrate your work over this time on the D and E targets, which we will be, you know, presenting today, and then myself and Wahira will concentrate on trying to, you know, clean up and use your comments that we have today on the A's and B's as far as we get. To try to bring something forward for you either next time or in our January meeting. So I think we do need some distance and some work to be done on our side first. So I hope that clarifies about the process. Is there another comment, I think, on the target B4. Yes, correct?
Yeah, Japan Amiko is asking for the floor. So if you could, yep, go ahead, Japan.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So thank you for Co-Chair and Secretariat for your excellent coordination. And we Japanese government would like to insert benefit in addition to safety, sustainability, and safer alternatives. This has already been introduced by Co-Chair today, and Japan is of the view that chemicals contribute to the enhanced quality of life if people properly understand the benefits and risks of chemicals and use chemicals in sound manner. In this regard, the benefit of chemicals is an important component to be incorporated into educational, training, and public awareness programs. Therefore, we would like to propose the word of benefit is inserted in this target. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. I have just Sarah Van-Goren from ICCA, followed by Andrea Rother. I just want to say to the participants quickly, it's quite important when you're dropping a group chat in to use the to everyone function, not to just attendees. So that to everyone means that us as panelists can actually see it. So thank you very much, Nalini. Nalini's kindly dropping those comments into the overall chat for us. But if you notice when you drop a chat in, please make sure you use to everyone. So next is Sarah Van-Goren, followed by Andrea Rother.
Thank you, Brenda, and good morning, good afternoon to you all. Good morning, Sylvia and Vahira. I just want to highlight, because I don't think we have captured our comments of ICCA with this specific B4, but when listening to the stakeholders, we share the same sentiments like Norway and the EU when saying that this is a crucial target indeed. We also fully support the comments made by Japan that we should also look at, let's say, linking this to the SDGs, as chemicals are needed to tackle all the SDGs. Just to give you an example also, maybe a thought on the indicators. I mean, in some parts of the world, we are starting boot camps in which we are engaging with academia to help adding the environmental and health impact on chemicals educations and to students who are studying chemicals. So these are exactly the kind of examples that we can put under here, and it is a responsibility of all stakeholders. Therefore, we also agree it's also including industry and other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarbat. Over to you, Andrea. I don't see any other hands up on B4 for the moment. Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. Thanks, Brenda. I think it's really important that we have some sort of quality control in terms of the educational training and public awareness programs. And I would advocate putting in the word accredited. So by 20XX, accredited educational training and public awareness programs on chemical safety and waste management, sustainability and safer alternatives, etc. I think, you know, anyone can do an educational or training program, but if it's not accredited and has some sort of quality control, there's going to be no guarantee that that you're actually achieving what you want to achieve. So I advocate for the word accredited. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next is Audun from Norway, followed by Johanna. Audun?
Yes, thank you. Just a small comment to the responsible entity and all stakeholders. I agree that all stakeholders should take responsible for this target. The reason why we specified governments and NGOs is that if we are specifying the responsibility too broadly, then maybe no one will actually take responsibility in practice for achieving this target. So that was the reason why we chose to specify, but this can also be solved in the indicators, of course, by disaggregating the targets into different stakeholders. So that's the solution. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Audun. We have Jill Hanna, followed by Ellen Stroud. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank, I believe it was the representative of the University of Cape Town who suggested putting in accredited. I would have a lot of sympathy with that. But my concern is that the best is the enemy of the good. If it has to be accredited, who's doing the accrediting? Is it the SciCam Secretariat, in which case they would do nothing else, given their current manpower? So it seems to me that if we sort out who is responsible, which is another layer that you need, not necessarily in the target, but specified somehow at the level of the indicators or whatever. But again, I have every faith in our co-facilitators working with the Secretariat to get this right. I think I remember that when the EU, I think it was, introduced this, they said that education was for government, training was for the private sector, public awareness was for all stakeholders. Then you would effectively end up with accredited without making it look as though it had to be accredited worldwide by one body. Which I don't think is a practicality at this time. So if we made it clear who was responsible for what, I think the point that these need to be quality programs would be covered without making this the job of the SciCam Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, for looking out for the SciCam Secretariat. Always appreciated. Next is Ellen Stroll from the UK.
Thank you, Brenda. I'll be brief. So to us, this is a really important target as well. Awareness for the general public, consumers and workers is really important. And to do that, we could support Norway's suggestion of governments and stakeholders because we believe it's a dual process to educate, train and raise public awareness of the benefits and harms caused by chemicals. So we would also welcome the addition of and evaluated to ensure that we review progress and enable the development of indicators. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. I don't see anyone else on the speakers list for B4. I see a couple hands up, but I think they're legacy hands. Servette, Jill, I think please take your hands down.
Legacy hands, that's a good term here. Okay, so thank you. I think this has been, as I said, a good exchange of the different views and reflections on the targets that we have from the IP4/3 document. And so I think we can now move on to the next slide, where we wanted to have a brief discussion on the new targets that were proposed under the strategic objective B. And then we can discuss the way forward for these. So we have 3 new targets, which I think have, if I understand from the submissions that were made, then the idea is to capture certain things that the proponents have felt are not captured by the targets that we have in front of us right now. I think there was one also that Norway proposed, if I'm not mistaken, as well. But I think we can put that one maybe in the. Can I ask Norway to repeat that one in the chat? Because I think they had one as well that they wanted for us to look at. So perhaps the best way forward is just that the proponents of the new targets, if you can just briefly explain, and then we will have to move forward because we have the strategic objective targets to still look at. So then you'll have an opportunity to consider targets until our next meeting. So I guess I'll ask the EU to explain the 2 targets that they're proposing new for under strategic objective B.
So I think we should unmute Matthias likely, unless you tell us otherwise, Matthias.
Yeah, please.
Matthias, are you unmuted?
Sorry, some technical problems. No, I'm the right addressee there. Yeah, just a brief explanation. We think that GHS is very important, and it was in, or it is in the current SciCam. So we didn't see that reflected in the target proposals on the table, and therefore we made this proposal regarding the implementation of GHS. And with regard to the information of the value chain, it's a similar background, as we think it's very important, in particular, if we want to achieve a circular economy, that the whole value chain or supply chain, if that's the better wording, is really informed about the content of products and articles related to chemicals, so that all are able to manage the products and the waste and so on in a sound manner. We are open to answer additional questions if they are coming up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think we have some hands up.
Yeah, I see one hand up. Fumito, you have the floor. Fumito Ishimura, followed by Jill Hanna, followed by Olga Sporanskaya. Fumito, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Fumito? Yes.
Okay. Thank you for co-chair for giving me great opportunity. EU and member sector propose all governments have legally implemented and enforced the United Nations global and globally harmonized system. But we propose alternative text. We propose to replace legally implemented and enforced with accelerated because UN, GHS, and the Beyond 2020 instruments are voluntary initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Fumito. I have Jill Hanna, followed by Olga. Jill?
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the EU for putting GHS in. I'm doing some work on targets in relation to the SDGs, and I'm horrified to discover that the GHS was supposed to be implemented in all countries by the year 2000, and that was put into the 1992 Rio document. So we really aren't doing very well on this one. That said, I think it probably ought to be an indicator under one of the existing either B1 or B2, because it's a very good indicator as to whether the broader concept is being properly managed. And I might suggest that the target B5 from IPEN would be another such that would make a reasonable indicator, because it's very measurable. In both, just to respond to the previous speaker, governments having legally implemented and enforced doesn't make SciCam a non-voluntary process. It's talking about the national level there, and for GAP at least, it doesn't worry us to see reference to national legislation. The target about the value chain and reliable information, that one does seem to be something that is not captured in the previous targets, although again, I would be grateful if the co-facilitators could really check that and decide whether it's an indicator or a target. But there's a word missing there that we think is very important. It should be is publicly available throughout their life cycle. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. We have Olga, followed by Laura Nazef, USA, followed by Servet, ICCA. So Olga, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, we proposed several new targets under B, and we hope that everyone will be able to review them once they are uploaded on the website, as well as the co-facilitators. And some of our targets actually complement the EU targets. For example, the one on GHS, we suggested that by 2030, full GHS is adopted by all countries and updated as new versions are published. So I will not, of course, read all our targets. I just want also to add that for the second EU target, we also suggest our support. We suggest our support, and for example, our targets B3 that by 2026, a global minimum cross-sectoral transparency standard for chemicals of global concern is in place and used to support the work on chemicals and products internationally and in national implementation plans, as well as the transition to non-toxic materials flows via circular economy. So to save the time, I would also like to mention one more target that we suggested, that by 2030, a publicly available global database administered by UNEP for chemicals of global concern is in place to support informed decision-making, and it will expand over time as needed when increasingly more countries report to it. So there are two more very important targets as well on hazardous pesticides, but you can look into our submission on that. Thank you.
Okay, I hear some mad typing, but over to you, Laura, followed by Servet. Oh no, sorry. Is that correct? Laura, go ahead, USA.
Thank you, Brenda. Just wanted to support what Japan said about GHS, that SAICM is a voluntary instrument, and so maybe not having a requirement to implement GHS, but we think it could be helpful to include it, GHS, in the targets or indicators in some way. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We have Servet, followed by Abbas, followed by Hauschka. Servet?
Yes, thank you, Brenda. Also from ICCA, we also support including of GHS. So thank you, EU and the member states, for the text proposal. We can maybe have also a closer look how we introduce it and also where exactly. It could also be under target A, but definitely a reference to GHS is, in our opinion, also very good to be included in the SAICM targets. On the value chain, the second proposal of EU, I think this is also quite of an important one, and this we can also support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Followed by Abbas. Abbas Torabi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Can you speak a little louder, please, Mr. Can you speak a little louder in a microphone?
Yes, can you hear me?
That's a little better, thank you.
Yes, regarding proposal for new target of THS, my question is that SAICM is a voluntary-based instrument, so how it can propose legally implementing THS? Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Hauschka from the ILO, followed by Auden from Norway, followed by UKLN. Hauschka? Hauschka, you have the floor. Can you hear us? I can't hear you. Hauschka? Okay, maybe I'll skip to Auden from Norway and then we'll go back to Hauschka. Auden from Norway, please take the floor, then I'll go back to Hauschka.
Okay, thank you very much. We proposed a target on the chemicals and products, or in articles, that is, which is in similar lines as the proposal by EU and member states. But I must admit that I prefer the EU language, so we can stick to that proposal. And we are also very much in favor of a specific target on the GHS system. I think that we actually had the GHS target in the list at an early stage in the process, but we have lost it at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Audun. Let's try Halshka again from ILO. Halshka, you look unmuted. We don't hear you. I'll come back to you at the end of the speakers list if that works, so keep trying. Ellen from the UK, followed by Oliver Unitar, followed by Michelle, Switzerland. Ellen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Brenda. We would first of all like to thank the EU for their proposal highlighting GHS, because similar to others, we felt this has been missing slightly. And it's incredibly important, as suggested by other speakers. We do think that actually it could be really useful to include it as an indicator, which has been suggested by a number of others, rather than a target. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Next, we have Oliver from Unitar, followed by Michelle from Switzerland. Oliver, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you. Yes, just from Unitar's point of view, we'd like to follow others and comment that we would like to see this as a target. We see it as something that can be communicated very easily, and there's a lot of commitment and momentum to it at the moment, so can be something we can sort of really drive forward in support of the new framework. Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you, Oliver. Next, we have Michelle Sheeran from Switzerland, followed by Matthias from the EU.
Thank you, Brenda. Switzerland would like to thank the EU for making this proposal on the GHS. Switzerland too believes that this is an important one and should be mentioned in the targets. We are open to discuss about the placement. But it is important, and it has been pointed out that we are behind with the GHS work, and that this has been the targets were set before now and were not achieved. So it's important to gear up efforts to reach full implementation of the GHS. So we are very supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, over to Matthias, followed by Halshka if we have her. Matthias, go ahead.
Thanks, Brenda. Just two thoughts regarding the comments made by others. The first one is related to legal requirements. I mean, we mentioned this in other targets as well, and just for having this as a target under SAICM, to say we want to see GHS legally implemented at national level doesn't change the voluntary character of SAICM or its successor. So maybe others might take this into consideration if they oppose what we propose there. And the second one is the question whether it should be a target or an indicator. EU member states are of the opinion that is of such importance, the implementation of GHS, that we would like to highlight it as a target, not just to say so as an indicator. And also, if it might be easy to measure progress, that shouldn't hinder us to use it as a target. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthias. I think that closes our speakers list for the new targets. Oh, I see Olga's asked for the floor. And if Halshka, if you're with us and want the floor, please raise your hand. Okay, Olga, over to you.
Oh, yeah, just a quick addition. We also think that the target on GHS should include that information on chemical classification and labeling is freely accessible to all. So in addition to legally binding approach, also the accessibility of information to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. And now I see.
Hi, Brenda.
Can you hear me? Yes, very good.
Go ahead, Hauske. Great.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you to everyone. First of all, the ILO would like to support the inclusion of the GHS, but we'd also like to make a comment on target B5 as suggested by IPEN. So we're grateful for this suggestion. The ILO is, of course, ready to assist any countries in regards to the adoption of occupational health and safety laws. We'd just like to clarify in regards to binding agreements. It may be more apt here to discuss ILO instruments because we have a number of different types of instruments. Some are legally binding, of course, such as conventions, but we also have a number of others, such as recommendations, protocols, and codes of practice that would be helpful for this target. And also we would suggest to expand in regards to different types of rights that are here. The right to refuse work, also the right to understand chemical identity and use is imperative. But there's a number of other rights, including the right to training, the right to PPE that's provided free of charge. And therefore, we'd like to see this a bit more inclusive in regards to that. Thank you very much, Brenda.
Thank you, Hauske. I see one other person's in the chat asked for the floor, so that's Ana Vejcik from Brazil. Ana, would you like to take the floor? Please unmute her microphone. And Fumito, I see your hand still up, but I think it's a legacy hand, so maybe take it down. But Ana Vejcik from Brazil.
Can you hear me? Okay. I would like to emphasize that GHS is very important and you believe in that, but we believe too that it could be in the indicators because we could have another systems that is very important too. So maybe if GHS was in the indicators, it was not missed, but it's important too. And for another hand, we would like to tell you about the material articles. We believe that it's very important, and we are sometimes in another mess like Stockholm Convention. It is very important, and we don't have this information for all the products almost. So we believe that it's a very important target to stay here in SAICM. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana from Brazil. I see Augustin with his hand up, and then I think we close the speakers list unless anyone else asks. So Augustin, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, quick comments and reactions to these new targets. We could agree on the importance of the GHS as an instrument, but maybe this instrument could fit more into target A rather than B. In B, we are discussing access of information, and in B, we are discussing access to information, and in A, actually, we are talking about specific measures and tools, so maybe that could fit into A. Regarding the second proposal, we agree that chemicals in articles and in products is an outstanding issue. We could think on how to put this into one of the existing targets, if possible. If not, it could be a standalone target. And on target B5, this approach of having a number of countries is not the ideal, and but of course regarding safety laws and the health of the workers is also an important aspect that should be covered, so we can think on how to fit in this target as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think those of us who are mindful of the time are probably quite stressed at this point. So we're going to rearrange a bit our agenda so that we can move some things forward and explain to you, and then we will revert back to the objective A target. So I'll first maybe start on the way forward in regards to the targets that we have discussed already under B, and also under A as far as we get. So I think we have quite a lot of information on the targets B, on your thoughts, and we haven't got yet to A, but we have quite a lot already there also in writing, and as much as we'll have time for, we'll also have an exchange on those as well. And because for the next, because I think it's important that we give the chance for people to be able to submit in writing enough, I think that if you allow, I would like you from your side to park your brain as far as targets under A and B after this meeting today, and give us a chance from our side to try to arrange it in a way that it will be more favorable for us to move the process forward. And so, it doesn't mean that we have finalized discussion on the target A and B, but it's just a pause so that we have a chance to arrange it in a way that will make more favorable and easier for us to deal with and move this forward virtually, because you understand the challenges. If we were in a location all together, this would be much easier. We'd manage because we work very well together. That's clear. So that's what we will do. Now I'm going to move to discussion to explain to you the process for D and E. So if I can just have the Secretariat move to that part of the presentation that we have. Yeah, okay. So those of you that were with us last time when we introduced the targets A and B, we had general discussions on the targets, on the objective, and also on the targets. So we're going to approach them similarly as far as the written input, but we won't have as much time to discuss. So what I would like, if you recall the approach that we were using before. So we have the target, I see it's target D, but the title says E, but these are the target D that we have. And I would like you to, when you're looking at the targets D and preparing your proposals, that you reflect upon the objective as it has been formulated. And again, a reminder that we are not working on the wording of the objective. And keep in mind the considerations that are used, or that are giving us an idea of what was the intent behind the objective as it is formulated and almost agreed. And then we would like to, we have a similar template as we had for A and B, where we would like then you to give us your general comments on the targets as a whole to the objective. So if you recall, here we're interested in hearing whether you feel there are gaps, whether you feel there is some issue with the targets, looking at the targets as a whole under that objective. So those are the things we want to hear there. And then you will have the opportunity to give your general comments on the target and also giving your specific text edits. And prior to the next meeting, we will be, preparing very similar kind of compilation of the information so that you have a chance to look at it and be prepared for the next meeting when we discuss in more detail on targets D and E. Perhaps what I would like to suggest that we do in terms of making sure that we have received all of your information, is that what we will do is after the deadline closes for submissions, we will put in the virtual working group space just information from who we've received submissions. We will not yet upload the submissions, but we will just make a note of who has submitted, submissions. And then those of you who have, then you can have an identification of the fact, for instance, that we did not, one of the submissions that we did not receive this time. So that will give you kind of a flag that that your submission has been misplaced in some way. But then we would expect you to revert very quickly because we will be needing the time to compile all the submissions. So the next is on the targets under strategic objective E. We can move to that slide. So similar, I see the titles we've switched, but the content. So here we have the targets for E, and the similar approach. Reflect on the objective. What were the considerations of why, what kind of targets were envisaged under this objective, excuse me. And then you have an ability to give your comments to the targets as they are and to provide your edits for text. And I hope no one has their earphones on, so they're getting my cough right in their ear. I apologize for that. So this is, again, we'll have similar template for you to work on, and we invite you to use this template. And to those of you who want to make your submission in PDF, please also make your submission in Word, because it makes it a lot easier for us to get all the information together. I know, it's very simple to just PDF to switch it to Word, but it actually sometimes skews the formatting, and it's an extra task that it would be good if we don't have to do. Then I would like to explain to you about the targets under C. We can move to that slide. So in the previous meeting, I reflected the fact that we would not be dealing with these targets because we want to make sure that the group that's dealing with issues of concern, we don't want to put pressure on them to reach a conclusion before we get a chance to look at their targets, because we need to have their feedback from that group. So this group, we had a meeting with the co-facilitators from that group, and they feel quite confident that they could give us some feedback from their work that could input into our target work so that we can take these targets up still within the work of our group. So the plan would be that in our last meeting, before our last meeting, we will get some information that we will be able to share with you in our meeting of December 7th. And that will give us the information for reflection to feed into your comments on strategic objective C, which then we could take up in the last meeting of our group, which right now is scheduled for January. I can't remember, but yeah, but the dates are so in December we will give you information so that we'll be able to work on the targets under strategic objective C. So my apologies for making this maybe a bit confusing, but our main intent is to give you the information enough that you can provide written comments and that we have the time to be able to discuss them. So this is the way, why we were structuring it in this way, because I think it's important that the group on issues of concern does have a chance to look at this. So are there any questions about this? I hope that is clear. And that's the way we would move forward. So now I understand everyone probably has their day planned, but I would suggest that we do try to work a bit longer and go back to discussions of the A targets. I understand if any of you need to leave the meeting. You know, we will be going back to these targets, not the next meeting, but I assume the meeting after that. So, you know, if we'll see how far we get, and I think it's important that we do have some discussion before we close. So we're going to try to work for another 40 minutes at least, if that's okay. I hope no one is completely upset by this, but yeah, let's try. So
Yes.
thank you for your pay. Sorry, go ahead, Brenda.
I just see that Jill Hannah's asked for the floor. I think it
Oh
was.
yes, of course. Yep. Please, Jill Hannah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sorry to intervene now, but it is a process point. I'm very conscious that, you know, in places like Sri Lanka, it's getting kind of late now. And I'm certainly very willing to work for as long as you can keep a WebEx open. That's perfect. But I think actually people worked extremely fast in our discussion today, and we only managed 5 targets plus the extras. I don't know whether you ruled against this last time, and in which case I dropped the suggestion, but it would seem to me useful that you put up at our next meeting a compiled version of a text with all brackets in that we could work to, rather than simply giving us a list of who said what. Because effectively we're being asked to negotiate in a virtual room, and that's not really very possible if we haven't got some single text to work from. So if, and certainly GAP has all the confidence in you, in the co-facilitators and the Secretariat, to allow you to take all the proposals and make something of them. Because otherwise I don't see how we begin to get through the work in the time available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jill, for your comment, and I understand that you know, this could be one way forward. I think I do have some challenges in this respect, and one is that we are not negotiating, so we are trying to have a discussion. And the second is that as soon as I put a text in front of you, which has 100 different brackets, well, it's not going to be 100, let's say 20 for each of the targets, I question whether that will be easier. I understand that if we are in the room together, that this is the usual way that we go in proposing and then adding text and then resolving text. However, I think this is a different kind of engagement we have here, and that's why what we're trying to do is to have a discussion about how we feel about the different text proposals that other people have, and then trying to move forward. So so this I would not feel comfortable in doing it the way we usually do it, because I think it's important that people look at the text proposals that others have, which is usually not the opportunity we get when we're meeting in the room, because usually we get the text proposals, you know, not immediately, but over the course of the time. So that's why we're trying to give you these proposals ahead of time, so that you can have a chance to look at and then gauge which you which you feel is the best. So with your permission, we would like to actually continue the way that we had envisaged for this group in the virtual work. And I understand that that there are constraints to time as far as it being late. But maybe we can just have a compromise then, and not for an extra hour, but maybe if we can manage to just go to past, which is just another 20 minutes, and then we would come back to you, not in the next meeting, but the meeting afterwards, and trying to give you a text that combines the different aspects that have been raised. So is that okay? Jill, is that a legacy hand, or would you like to speak again? Okay, so under the target A's, we have some general comments that were made under strategic objective A in regards to the clear identification of roles of stakeholders, further discussions on waste, and these are things that that we will see through the responsibles and try to resolve. And I already mentioned the issue of waste. There also seemed to be a general agreement that there are gaps under the strategic objective that have appeared with the new text after the technical working group, and those are in regard to biodiversity and climate, as well as illegal traffic. And here now we have target A1, where it seems we had a general agreement on the fact that there needs to be further discussion regarding the need for development of plans at the country level, a review of plans within CICM that could create additional burden for many countries was one issue that was raised, and that there needs to be a clear reference to legal frameworks as per the OOG, and then further discussions needed on different measures. We actually, under target A, we have quite a lot of A1, sorry, quite a lot of general comments, and also quite a number of textual proposals. So I like to open the floor now on this A1, where we have also a alternate, and hear your views and reflections on the text proposals that you have before you, please.
Okay, I see the Ministry of Environment for Japan with their hand up. Itsuki, followed by Bob Diedrich. So Itsuki, you have the floor, Japan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Hi. So Japan is of the view that the plans can be developed and reviewed by stakeholders other than government. And because of the nature of the multi-sector and multi-stakeholder approach within this Beyond 2020 instrument. And also Japan is of the view that it is not appropriate to specify the frequency of updating plans, since there will be cases where periodic update is not necessary, is working well. So we have suggested this old sentence here displayed in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsuki. That's followed by Bob Diedrich. Bob?
Thank you, Brenda. So yeah, our main concern here was that this target only addresses plans to achieve sound management of chemicals. We felt this target should be much stronger, the target should actually be that countries have frameworks and institutional mechanisms in place to achieve sound management of chemicals. And it is also good practice to review those frameworks periodically every 10 or 15 years to make sure they're still fit for purpose. So that's why we added a second target on the review of those mechanisms. I've heard, of course, all of the interventions about SAICM not being a mandatory convention. So we could, of course, tweak the language that we have proposed accordingly by adding should develop, for example, to make it clear that this is not a legal obligation under this this framework. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Over to Audun from Norway. You have the floor, Audun.
Yes, thank you very much. On the national action plans, we think that different countries may be at different levels, and some countries are part of a regional regulatory framework, maybe, and in some cases, national action plans may be a duplication of work. So we are in favor of deleting target A1 and going for Alt A1 as an alternative, that measures needed to be implemented to achieve sound management of chemicals and waste are identified. And we are also sympathetic with that this can be done as a part of the Beyond 2020 instrument. And then we would have we would need some kind of procedure to identify these measures. However, we are also thinking in lines that this can be done in other ways as well. So in summary, I think we are quite close to the proposal by United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Audun. I see Augusta from Argentina. Please, others, don't forget to put your hand down once you've spoken.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, regarding target Alt A1, we think that it is very much alike of target A3. It's almost the same. So we would like to see those work together to come out with a possible unified target. I'm talking about A3. Regarding A1 that the plans are mentioned, we agree that not only governments could make a plan, also other stakeholders, and as somebody else mentioned, regional plans could also be developed. So we would like to capture that idea. But of course, first, those measures under those plans have to be identified and recommended by the framework. So we would recommend to have first target identifying those measures that are needed to be implemented, and then a second target suggesting or having a wording that plans should be developed taking into account those measures needed to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Augusta. Then I see Servet from ICCA, followed by Olga, and followed by Laura from the US. Servet?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, like the previous speakers, we also support Norway. We also suggest that the alt is preferable rather than putting the burden on countries to create plans. We also would like to note that the basic building blocks for chemicals management, I believe they have already been identified through the IMC toolbox and other avenues. And we may also suggest, but again, I'm echoing Audun here, that this target could also be eliminated to the extent that other targets refer to the enactment and the enforcement of these legal frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you, Servet. We have Olga, followed by Laura. Olga, go ahead.
Oh, yes, thank you. Actually, we support ILO and I'm sorry. So the speaker was like before. I remember that that all stakeholders should be part of this work. And in our suggestion for Target 8.1, we also think that national implementation plans should be part of this target, and not only national implementation plans, which should be periodically reviewed, but also they should include the work programs for issues of concern in order to achieve sound management of chemicals and waste throughout their life cycle. This makes the target more focused and results. And for target 8.1Bs, we think that implementation of the national plans are reviewed by the SECOM multi-stakeholder committee every years. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. We then have Laura, USA, Priscilla Alves, Brazil, Matthias Wolf, EU. Go ahead, Laura from USA.
Thank you. We do want to reiterate that we think it's important to include chemicals management systems at the national level. We do think that perhaps targets A1 and A3 could be combined in some way, as long as in other targets, other stakeholders identifying measures is included. And then as far as identifying measures at the level of the instrument, we don't think this is needed because we have a lot of resources to draw from, including the 11 basic elements of the OOG. We think that the focus should be more on stakeholders identifying which measures they think are necessary to take. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I then have Priscilla Alves from Brazil, followed by Matthias Wolf.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to echo what our co-facilitator has just said, because we are not negotiating here. We are just discussing and trying to find common ground on important aspects regarding the Beyond 2020 arrangement. And then I think our proposal, I mean the proposal from Brazil, hasn't been presented on the screen, but I would like to underline that considering that there are other stakeholders in SAICM besides governments, we suggest maintaining the term governments in order to clearly separate the responsibilities of each stakeholder. And we also think that the life cycle of chemicals already encompasses the term waste. So we suggest the adoption of chemical substances and products throughout their life cycle. And in regards to the periodicity, which was not included in IP 4/3 document, we do not think it's convenient to be placed on the target, since it depends on the identification of new issues and the national capacities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla, Brazil, followed by Matthias Wolf from the EU, and then Ellen Strahl from the UK. Matthias?
Thanks, Brenda. As EU member states are of the opinion that the targets should look for the final goal, and as just the planning of measures isn't the final goal, we would agree to those who proposed to delete this target and focus on implementing the legislative measures that are, in our point of view, in the focus of Objective A and its target. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias. Ellen, I think you had asked for the floor, but maybe your hand is okay. Ellen, your hand is up. Great. Ellen Strahl from the UK. I don't see anyone else asking for the floor, so maybe we end with Ellen, but go ahead, Ellen.
Thanks, Brenda. I just wanted to raise that we feel this target seems to have dramatically changed in the discussions that were held in the technical working groups compared to the targets we were discussing at IP3. And we would like to emphasize, similar to others, the importance of having regulatory systems in place that are enforced. And so that said, we would be open for discussions with on the proposal made by the OECD. I also wanted to emphasize the importance of alignment and coherence between discussions in different virtual working groups on the issue of national action plans, given that the governors group are discussing language and have agreed language in relation to national action plans. We also appreciate the importance of reporting, but we think further discussions might be needed to make sure that we reduce the administrative burden by optimizing existing reporting mechanisms. And national action plans may detract resources from implementations, which really should be the focus. So we'd like to see synergies with other conventions optimized rather than creating an obligation for all to develop national action plans. Thank you very much. So that's our comment, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. I don't see any other hands up. Let's see here. Perhaps we can close the speakers list.
Okay. Some of you who know me from when we're in one place together, that I tend to abuse you quite a lot by keeping you up late hours and never-ending discussions. So I am going to not do that. Those of you who are already in the evening maybe already feel that I'm doing that, but I will not push it further. As Johanna said, I mean we are on different time zones, so it's I want to respect that, you know. But I think that what we do need to consider is that moving forward, we definitely need a bit longer than a 2-hour session. So I mean, we'll speak to the Secretariat afterwards, but perhaps to start the meeting an hour earlier, according to Geneva time, and have it go for 3 rather than 2 hours would be favorable. So, Delphina, can we move to, I think, is it the last slide that we have the way forward, just so that I can go over again what the plan is? Because I can't remember if I said everything that I should have. We have quite a number of targets still to go under A, but we will then reflect upon those later. Delphina, do you want to put on the last, I think it's the last slide of the presentation that we have prepared for today. Was this still? No, there's one more. Okay, so yes, we were a bit more ambitious that we would have a very specific way forward with each target, but I think that the proposal that was made, you know, Wahid and I do a bit of work on your comments from B to A while you're working on D to E is a good way forward. And so what we are waiting for now is to collect feedback from you electronically on concrete text for targets under strategic objective D and E. So you have to switch to different topics as far as text proposals. And as I mentioned, we would really be appreciative if you would use the template that provided for input. It makes it easier for us. We can more quickly get back to you with a compiled document. And as I mentioned, if you prefer to submit PDF, that's fine. I totally understand. I want to get text to get lost, but in parallel, please do send a Word file to Secretariat. Then we'll make sure that the PDF is what we upload in full, but we can then at least use the Word file for copy paste. It just makes it a bit more quicker, and the more submissions we have, the easier then it is. I'll just repeat an encouragement that I made last time. I know it's very difficult. I know many of you are working in many other groups in parallel, not to mention our everyday work, not to mention family life, and everything is all rolled into one now with the COVID, if people are working from home. But we do encourage, if you have the opportunity, and if it helps to, you know, move discussions further, is to have discussions with other colleagues in your region, in your sector, to combine ideas and interests in joint submissions if possible, or when you're reflecting on the submissions, when we'll have the compiled document, if you feel that there's an opportunity before our next meeting for you to engage with others, then we do encourage that, because that would help us in our work forward. We want to have to converge on as much as possible during this time that we have. So our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 7th of December. Then we will make it a three-hour meeting, and as soon as we can, we'll change that in the schedule that we have on the website. But I think an hour earlier, Brenda, that's probably the easiest way to go, right? Okay, in a 3-hour. Okay, well, he is also saying he's available.
Yes,
good.
Fully agree.
Okay, great. So let me thank you again. I know it's difficult. I think we're doing a good job. We're not losing the chat that you are also giving us the ideas, and we'll use that to look at what kind of combined document we can get prepared for you until the next time. So thank you very, very much for your patience. Thank you for your engagement. Do as much as possible engage amongst each other where you see some possibility of convergence of ideas. And we look forward to the next meeting with you. I hope there are no questions. If there are, then this is the time to ask them before we close completely. Okay, I see no comments. Okay. Oh, there's one question about if we're going to resume to discussions about the strategic objective A next meeting. No. Please take a break. Now concentrate on D and E. I think that it's valuable for us to get some work on trying to compile and work on the different comments you have given already in writing on the strategic objective A targets before we look at them again. I understand that some people feel that they haven't had a chance to comment. I think that it would be a better use of your time if you allow us to work on it a bit more from our side, and then you will be able to give your comments on the next time we revert to those targets, which will be, I assume it will be in our January meeting. Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. All the best, and good luck in all the work you have to do. Goodbye.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Oh, Sylvia, great job.
80
Brenda,
participants still at 4:30, so well done, you guys. Okay,
Thank
see
you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening there, and I will have a good night.
Yeah, you too. I hear it's getting late for you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Brenda. Bye. Thank you, Sylvia. Bye.